Welcome to the end of the carrot of Rocket Rabbit Commentaries playthrough of Alan Wake on the Xbox 360. In this part, we're finally going to get to Cauldron Lake. After we pick up some items, of course.
More flashbangs.
How many flashbangs do I have now? Is it 12?
12.
12 flashbangs. I don't even know if I can properly use them at this point. Because by this point, the enemy encounters are so few before we reach the actual quote-unquote final boss of the game. Jump cut.
And it is a puzzle boss, right?
It's a puzzle. I wouldn't even call it a puzzle boss. I would call it a mystery boss. The question is not in which order do you do the things. It is what are the fucking things.
Ah.
And meanwhile, we have just a little bit more of that good old Alan Wake puzzle solving. We'll find the power source, activate it, and then use the device that draw power from the newly activated source.
You see, it's weird that he says that he needs to get the generator running when there are clearly power lines that are still functioning. So, what is with that?
Well, the power lines don't enter into it, except that they distribute the power, but the power source is not active. Now the power source is active.
But the cut power lines are still sparking, meaning that there's live electricity flowing through them.
Oh yeah, you're right. Well, I mean, those power lines aren't going to be much use to us. Hey, you guys take care of your tools too, because believe me, blood will gum up a chainsaw faster than you can imagine. That's why you don't cut pine with a chainsaw. I mean, you could, but it wouldn't be very effective.
Right, because
Ow.
you got one shot.
I got crushed by the
elevator.
elevator.
Oh no, the elevator landed on you. Okay.
Yes. And there's something you don't see every day. Nor do you see doors magically opening and pushing my character model away. Bye, everybody.
We are ascending onto the shipping platform.
I'll see your character models later, I'm sure. Just as soon as I catch up on my literature. I haven't even read yet today, damn it.
After Zane had gone, I stood alone in the shifting dream that was the dark place. I had to find a way to the cabin. I'd written myself a way through this place in the manuscript. I followed the idea of a path. I'd written myself across the ocean that blocked my way, and with that, there was a bridge to the island beyond. The idea of the cabin flickered in the underwater darkness. I willed the cabin to be real, and it was.
Thanks, Zane.
Thank you, Zane. So Alan Wake was just describing a late-game game mechanic that we're going to be introduced to in this part because there is no more Alan Wake after this. We're going to be using the power of light and willpower in order to create new realities. Which, of course, begins by destroying existing realities.
So, Alan Wake gets approached by Abbott Sword in this part?
Well, more like Davy Jones.
Oh. I don't think Davy Jones was ever a Green Lantern.
Oh, you listen to me now. I am the writer. Ow. I said I am the writer. I am the fighter.
In the clearing stands a boxer and a fighter by his trade, and he carries a reminder.
Oh, look. It's a new objective. Destroy the tornado.
Huh.
Ow.
Yeah.
Falling
Alan is
damage.
not really the most agile. Oh, that's a car.
That was shocking. I am
yes,
shocked.
that was very shocking.
Jesus Christ. I get it. Angry people throw things.
Angry tornadoes throw vehicles at us that we can't drive.
What do you want? I've seen trucks and I've seen vans, school buses and schooners.
Do you think there's any Volkswagen Rabbits that she's throwing at us?
Probably. Volkswagen put out lots of cars in the 70s. These are all objects that were either newly created from her destruction or were dug up from the bottom of the lake.
Okay.
All right.
Hold it. There was a police cruiser in the lake for some reason.
That was probably one of the police cruisers that she had destroyed a couple chapters ago.
Oh, all right.
When Agent Nightingale originally tried pursuing Alan Wake and sent a bunch of deputies after him, and then the darkness destroyed everything. So mind you, you do have the option to take out some of these objects. Your target...
Like, there's a bus that is floating around that you clearly can have the option to take out.
It's very slowly draining its health. However, destroying the objects that the tornado has in its grasp is not the actual objective. It appears to be the objective because you would think that destroying objects that it's pulling into itself would be effective.
But no, she can just grab more boat pieces.
She could just grab more boat pieces or just kind of stand there, spinning, writhing. Let me throw flashbangs at you. I already know that there are no more enemies after this. Die.
Huh.
I had to get right into its heart to hurt it.
I'm trying. I'm trying, Alan. Can you be any more
But
vague, though?
here's the thing. Alan didn't mention that he is the light, so it's very difficult for the player to know that you need to keep going towards it.
The flare gun was the only way to get
Really? We
right
have to
into
use
the
the flare
heart of the
gun?
dark place.
I did a jump cut, by the way, because the game takes a couple minutes of you being confused before it tells you that. And I genuinely forgot that the flare gun was the only thing that can precede this sequence.
Okay.
Oh no, I mean you could throw flashbangs in it till the cows come home, but of course you need the one fucking wonder weapon in order to take it out. Here we go, infinite flare gun supply.
Literally infinite.
Okay. Alright, boys and girls, it's time for the finale. Don't get hit by the moving objects, they will kill you. Get right in her goddamn face and shoot.
It's all in your head.
You're saying new stuff, I'm winning. I'm winning, damn it. No, you're making this up. You are vexatious.
Ouch.
You're repugnant.
Tornado Wrangler Alan.
Oh, we wrangled it. We're gonna wrestle it to the ground. They'll pick it up by its scruffy little ears. It's
Alan, that is a terrible place to keep your flare gun.
He was dramatically. He ran out of ammo.
No, he didn't.
James Bond only needs one bullet. He stood at the rim of Cauldron Lake with the clicker in his hand, and he jumped. What?
Huh. So this is when Alan commits suicide. Okay.
The end. We're dead! Yay!
Hey, Alice.
Baby, you were having a bad dream. It was just another nightmare.
An American nightmare?
An American nightmare.
It wasn't a dream.
Everything's fine.
Oh,
Turn the lights on. Turn the lights on.
Shh, baby. The power's out. There's no light.
no, you're lying to me.
The power is very clearly not out. There's way too many lighted reflections in our bathroom for that to be the case. We have light spots on the doors. And look, you have shadow auras surrounding you.
Go back to bed. Are you taking your pills? Do you want me to call Dr. Hartman?
Yeah, I fucked up. Because what happened was I took a pause break during that sequence, but I
Oh.
forgot to hit record until this moment.
Okay.
So basically,
So this is us confronting Zane.
oh, this is us confronting somebody else too.
Oh,
Surprise,
hi,
motherfucker!
Scratch.
Yeah, you weren't expecting this guy. Yep, just pay no attention to him. He really has no importance to the story. He's just here.
He's just here to sequel bait the spin-off game.
He is here to sequel bait the spin-off game. The only other thing that I fucked up on showing is that sequence in the apartment introduced us to this mechanic. This is the reality creation mechanic. There are objects.
And where if we use our flashlight, or is it the clicker now?
It's still the flashlight. The
Okay.
clicker's around here somewhere. But so all of these words describe objects that if you point your flashlight at it long enough, it creates the objects that it describes. Barrel.
No, what do you say? You can't.
You don't love me.
Bridge.
Quickly, you don't even love yourself. All you do is
This is the power of words. By the forces of identification, mankind escapes from the swamps of darkness.
You're my muse.
I'm not.
Who are you? What have you done with my Alice?
Alan, what are you doing?
Oh, careful. Don't hit the word bird. You want bird-like cabin, but not bird.
Put the light back on.
Don't turn the birds on.
Nothing like that had ever happened.
Are you sure, Alan?
Tom, let me go. I promise to be good. Please, untie me, you naughty boy. I will help you write your masterpiece. I will love you forever.
No, you're not Barbara Jagger. I made a terrible mistake. I should have never written you back. You came back wrong. Your heart is filled with dark.
Oh, come on! You skipped the melodrama. That's really confusing.
I did it too fast. I don't care. Game's over.
Now you will never get her back.
You are creepy, heartless lady.
I am much older than you.
Sure you are, Riku.
Older than your first work of art.
Because you're probably in your 50s right now or something.
Face to wear.
I get it. I've had parents. Do me one favor. Just die. Yep. Cutscene, boss. Just like Mr. Scratch in the sequel, you don't actually manually kill the final boss. It just kind of happens.
You know, we're doing Shadow of Mordor in conjunction with this, and we're even uploading it so I can bring it up. The final boss of Shadow of Mordor is also a cutscene boss.
Yes! Cutscene bosses.
Well, Alan, you have successfully killed
I
the
could feel
darkness.
Alice's presence close by.
Yep, it's behind the
I
murdered
understood what I
owl.
had to do now. I knew how to write the ending to Departure. There's light and there's darkness.
Schmaltzy.
Cause and effect. There's guilt and there's atonement. But
Obvious.
the scales always need to balance. Everything has a price.
Cliche.
Zane had gone wrong. There's a long journey through the night back into the light.
Just keep typing out.
Alice? Alice? Oh no!
Whee! Sploosh. So now we have time travel powers.
Yeah. I think they did that so that we have some, like a, I don't know, so this is a device that says, okay, if the first 15 times you've heard this did not work, maybe the 16th time will help. That first Alice fell into the lake, she got dragged down to the bottom, and now she's finally swimming to the surface. Because that's where she was this whole time. Thank God she barely had any clothes on. I mean, that would have been tragic. Because, you know, people do drown because their clothes get waterlogged when they fall into a lake or whatever.
Only if they're wearing jeans.
Fucking jeans.
Jeans have got so many. The pockets on jeans get waterlogged, and you know, becomes an issue.
Jeans. The most murderous of all clothing has killed people, employment, fashion, and dress codes. Oh,
Are we still fighting Barbara?
darling. No, Barbara's dead. I
know that Barbara is dead in the present timeline, but we're currently in the past timeline where we just dove in.
No,
So
that is a good question as to when exactly this particular moment takes place. I think it takes place in the perfect present. So basically 2 weeks after the original events of the game. Yep, let's do the movie zoom out thing, because when you're pulling away from an object, it decreases interest and lets you know that we're probably leaving.
So, Alice survives and Alan is missing.
Alan is around here somewhere. I mean, we know he reappears in the sequel.
Plane!
Because if there's one thing that breaks the peril of the former, it's knowing that the hero survives into the latter. Oh dear. Yes, friendship, fun, smiles. Booze.
The old gods of Asgard.
Moonshine. Dancing. Crazy
Now the waitress that is possessed by Barbara. Barry?
No, that was Nightingale.
Oh.
It's not a lake. It's an ocean.
Period.
Alan, wake up.
Departure.
Yay. Thank you, Sam Lake.
Sam Lake, this story is confusing.
It makes some sense. You look like
Alright.
you would be better fitted as rock and roll star.
Probably not, honestly. Now, to be honest, I did enjoy going through at least watching this game for the most part, but I do have a lot of nitpicks concerning the story, because I know that you are able to make sense of most of this, but going through this, mostly because of how long it fucking took us to go through this, I'm lost on a lot of them. Lost on a lot of the minutia.
For example.
Well, there's the time travel plot that comes up at the very end of the game. The ending of Departure apparently separates Alan and Alice again, despite the fact that it's not supposed to do that. We don't really know all of Zane's powers, despite the fact that he clearly has some powers, thanks to the lake. And then there's the fact that the darkness at the bottom of the lake actually countermands itself just by existing.
So, the darkness and Thomas Zane are both limited by the events of the story Departure, and now that Alan Wake has, literally and figuratively closed the book on Departure, he also has sealed their powers away.
That's not really. I mean, that's the clear conclusion here, sure, but that's not really my question. What are Zane's actual powers? Because he's able to directly communicate and indirectly communicate with Alan at multiple points in the game, and yet he's also able to directly confront Barbara. So I know that Barbara is essentially just an avatar for the darkness, but as I kept mentioning throughout the playthrough, the darkness powers seem to be, mostly all-encompassing for this area.
So, well, I can clear up on Thomas Zane. Thomas Zane is designed to be he's a lifeline, is what he is. His function is to keep Alan alive and to keep him safe so that he could actually live to do all the things that he does to save Alice. Thomas Zane, well, I mean, for one thing, Thomas Zane was the one who. Wait, was it him? No, that's right. Alan Wake rose back to the surface of the lake, but either by his own power or with the help of the darkness. But it was Thomas Zane who helped Alan escape from the original plot design of Departure, which was meant to basically lock the door on any help. And then Thomas.
Why does the darkness need to lock that door again? Because given how Barbara and the darkness act and interact with Alan and the rest of the characters of the story, it doesn't really look like they need to worry about any of Thomas's help.
Well, he wasn't. The darkness wasn't supposed to worry about Thomas Zane. Thomas Zane was an unintended consequence of the whole thing, probably because Thomas Zane was so closely tied to Barbara Jagger. Or either that, or the whole Barbara Jagger Thomas Zane thing was just an invention of Alan Wake's imagination because he knew how closely tied the legends were.
Ken Kato. Ken Kato, you could have done more. Could have done better on the sound balancing. So there.
We needed more volume on the dialogues because in a game that is mostly about manuscripts and literature, it would be nice to actually hear the exposition out loud instead of just reading it all the time. Reading is important. Some people use it exclusively as a substitute for having it spoken out loud, which is much faster message transmission.
Localization team. Ooh.
So you might notice that a lot of the names that came up early on were Scandinavian names, because one of the big things that I applaud this game for was using live actors, as we saw in all the different videos, as we saw in the Night Springs video, as we saw on the Jim Gaffidy show where Alan Wake made an appearance. Those were actually filmed, but the voiceover was done by different actors. The actors that you saw were just mouthing the words that came up on the audio, and I thought was ingenious. So they can get the look for Alan Wake, and they get to keep the voice.
Mm-hmm.
But what did you think? What did you think of the pacing and the length of the entire game? Now that the game is all done.
There were a couple of pacing parts that were not as refined as I would like them to be, like the opening with the diner and the opening of of the of the clinic. Those were a bit slow, but otherwise, a majority of the pacing was decent, and the length honestly feels all right. I mean, it took us a bit longer than it realistically should have to get all the way through Alan Wake, but that's mostly because of how we do our recording sessions.
Yeah. Yeah, and you guys may have noticed that starting around part 21, 22, my episode length started getting fixed around the 15-minute mark. That was because I had to get a whole new video recorder in order to finish this game. This playthrough probably took about this playthrough probably took between 8 and 9 hours to complete, which I think is that's a pretty decent length for a one-player game.
Yeah.
Especially a game where there's no real new game plus, there's no level up, or not to mention there aren't really many in the way of alternate pathways or ways to play. It's mostly just it's like a movie series, more like.
Yeah. It's a somewhat linear narrative.
Linear narrative. I see what you did there.
Well, it's not actually. I didn't actually make a pun or a joke there. That's how I would describe this.
Narrative is a word used to describe literature stacked on top of each other in a way that makes sense.
Well, yes. Keith Robinson, the motion capture specialist.
I can definitely say I enjoyed playing Alan Wake way more than I enjoyed playing American Nightmare.
Well, that's mostly because the production values in Alan Wake seem to be somewhat higher than they were in American Nightmare. And American Nightmare, just despite its rather wonky focus on Mr. Scratch, is actually more so about the combat in the game rather than the narrative itself. Whereas Alan Wake is significantly more focused on the narrative as opposed to the combat, which is mostly just here.
Mm. And I imagine that Alan Wake's American Nightmare probably didn't create that many new assets except for the looks on the character models and the environments. And probably,
And honestly, they probably ripped those out of a Grand Theft Auto engine.
And not to mention that they probably used all the exact same voice actors for American Nightmare as well, because that game only came out like 2 years after this game came out. This was 2010, and American Nightmare was 2012. 2011, 2012, around that area.
They bothered to name the forum moderators.
Well, I mean, for God's sake, if you don't create interest for your work, how's anybody supposed to know about it?
Well, that's not what I'm complaining about here. What I'm bringing to light is the credit sequence is rather lengthy. It's more than 5 minutes so far, right?
Yeah, it's a 10-minute credit sequence.
Jesus. And look at all these special thanks. Do we really need all of the testers to get special thanks?
Yeah, because if one tester was not mentioned, he would have been butthurt about
See,
it.
countless others over the years. Plenty of testers did not get mentioned.
Put the lime in the coconut and shake it all up. You put the lime in the coconut. Na 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 na. Say I don't want you. La 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 la. Say I don't need you. Da, da, da.
I don't know how any of these songs actually go.
Neither do I. I guess we're just probably part of the point, because how much in royalties do you think you have? Which songs do you think would cost more in royalties? Would it be
Space Oddity cost a lot.
Would it be Pretty Woman by Roy Orbison or Beat It by Michael Jackson?
Oh, that's actually interesting because Roy Orbison is actually rather famous and he's from an older era. I would go so far as to say that Beat It by Michael Jackson wins it out because of its international success. However, it's probably only just barely.
Yeah. I would say the same, because I actually underestimated how popular Roy Orbison's work was. Alan Wake's journey through the night will continue.
In Night Springs.
Yes, that was Alan Wake, the original, the one and only. And thank you so much for joining us on our playthrough.
Overall, good game. You should probably go play it if you're into narrative adventure games, but I'm probably going to skip it.
It's worth at least one playthrough.